Hello everybody and welcome back to World of Warships Legends. My name is Spartan Elite 43 and tonight we are back on the path to the Kansas and we are on the Tier 5 Tennessee. So with that being said, let's look at our commander. We are running William Sims with Azure Lane Scharnhorst and Paolo de Revel. We have Flammable Cannoneer, Gyrating Drill Bits, Marksmanship, Reaching Out XXL, and Will to Rebuild as our perks. We get into the equipment. We're running AA Guns Mod 2, and we're running Steering Gears Mod 2. For the loadout, we have our spotter plane. We have 3 heals. We're running Community Contributor Flag and the Sci-Fi Space Camo, but we're going to go ahead and switch over to the permanent camo that we get from... We don't have it upgraded. Darn it! Oh well. We'll have to upgrade it, but it'll look good for the meantime. Stats. Survivability, 54,600 hit points with a 37% torpedo damage reduction, which comes in huge. It's one of the biggest things about this particular ship in this line is that it has great torpedo damage reduction. And a lot of times, you don't even take a flood. You still do occasionally, but I've been hit several times with torpedoes today and not caused flooding, which is unusual because it seems like it causes flooding on every ship that I've ever taken a torpedo on every time I take a torpedo. But moving on, we've got 356 millimeter 50 caliber Mark 7s, which should be the same as the New Mexico, I believe. You have 12 of them. You reach out to 17.6 kilometers, reload in 28.4 seconds, and have a 40-second 180-degree turn time. You fire HE, you get 5,000 maximum damage with a 30% chance to set fire. But if you fire the AP, you get a maximum damage of 11,550. Secondary, you got 127mm Mark 27s. You got 8 of those, firing out to 4 kilometers and reloading in 4.5 seconds. They fire HE with a maximum damage of 1,800 and a 9% chance to set fires. And then you have the 127mm Mark 5s that you have 10 of that reach out to 4 kilometers and reload in 8 seconds. Maximum HE damage is 1,800 with a 6% chance to set fire. AA Defense, again, pretty solid. It's an American battleship. 12.7mm Brownings, you get 2 of those doing 7 damage per second. Pretty awful, reaching out to 1.4 kilometers. Then you have the 20mm Ehrlichen Mark 4s that you have 8 of that do 29 damage per second and reach out to 2.4 kilometers. Then you have the 20mm Ehrlichen Mark 20s that you have 4 of that do 12 damage per second and reach out to 2.5 kilometers. And the 40mm Bofors Mark 1, which is fantastic, at 12 of those that reach out to 4.2 kilometers and do 68 damage per second. Maneuverability, 18.9 knots, so she's slow. Big surprise, right? Turning circles, fantastic at 670 meters. And a rudder shift time with this build is 12.4 seconds, so not bad. Concealment. Detectability by sea is 14.1 kilometers with this build. Even though if you have a better camo, it'll be, I think 13.7, something like that. Detectability by air, 11.3. Guaranteed is always 2, and 12.3 kilometer detectability in smoke. If we look at the armor, once again, doesn't look that impressive. And isn't really that impressive. There's a lot of thin armor and a lot of upper plate that can be pinned very easily. But you got 25mm bow, nothing unusual there. So anything 15 inches and above overmatches goes straight through. So keep that in mind. Also, we get rid of that. You've got a little bit of a torpedo protection there, but it's below the surface. Not going to help you too much from incoming fire. But you see the Citadel is submerged. It's not even at the waterline. It is actually submerged. So it has to be either rounds coming in from high up, like coming down with plunging fire coming into your Citadel, or you have to be in a heavy turn in order to get this thing Citadel. Otherwise, if you're able to pin the bow side plating, once again, you can get a Citadel through there, and that extends to the rear as well, because it's not that much of a cushion between the citadel and the front of the ship. So if you can get some shells through, and even potentially citadeling it with 15-inch guns through the bow, like, that's not out of the question either. Agile, above average ability to change direction. We already talked about that. Ironclad, above average armor thickness. Already talked about that. She's slow. Already talked about that. Tennessee, a Tennessee-class battleship armed with 12 356mm guns and possessing quite modest speed characteristics. Tennessee was moored in Battleship Row when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, which brought the United States into World War II. She was not seriously damaged, and after being repaired, operated off the west coast of the U.S. in 1942. She entered service in 1921, and there were 2 of them in the series. And just like yesterday, if you can tell me what the other sister ship of the Tennessee is, I'll pin you. The first person to get it right gets pinned. So, let's take a look at her. You'll see that we have a cage mast. Pretty unique. Kind of different. It's not too bad at the front because you have the regular superstructure surrounding it, but at the back you can definitely get a good look at that cage mast. It's just a different style of mast. If you remember, if you watched my Ultimate Admiral this week on Tuesday, I actually built a ship with cage mast. So, you know, just something a little different. But that being said, let's get to the gameplay. Alrighty, so we're going to be on Northern Waters, and we are in the Tennessee. Now, I will say this. I do something that gets me into trouble quite a bit. And this one is going to be no exception. We're up against 4 destroyers every freaking match, right? Everybody's tired of it. Most people are at least tired of going up against 4 destroyers every freaking match. It's just not fun. Like, I don't know why Wargaming doesn't put a limit on the amount of destroyers that can get into the match. I'm assuming it's 5, because the most I've ever actually encountered in a match is 5 destroyers on each team. That's ridiculous. That's half the team in ships that have 12 to 15,000 hit points. Like, really? Like, where's the fun? Oh, and by the way, they can't be seen. And usually destroyer players are, let's just be honest, some of the worst in the game. There are some good destroyer players out there, but most people in destroyers just don't understand the basics of how to play. It's just the way it goes. I don't know why. I'm gonna say it probably has something to do with the fact that they don't have to be seen, so they can do whatever the heck they feel like. And it doesn't take a very good player to just run around completely unspotted and, you know, launch torpedoes at 12 kilometers or whatever they end up launching at. Okay? Now, with that out of the way, I am going to get myself into a little bit of trouble. And I am going to fall right into a trap that was perfectly placed by one of the destroyer players on this side of the map. So after saying that they're usually some of the worst players in the game, and also backing it up with there are good destroyer players, well, we're going to run into one of these good destroyer players in a moment. And he's going to be in a Mass, or Moss, whatever you want to call it. It's a German destroyer. You can see, not having the good range that we want is kind of a drawback for this ship. I like to have at least like 18 kilometers of range, just because it's difficult to reach out and touch people when you get these sort of opportunities if you're limited to like 17 kilometers or less. And I think ours is 17.6 kilometers, if I remember correctly. But we see this hood out here, and it appears to have a smoke screen protecting it, who is firing HE. Now, at first, I wrongfully said that this was the hood that was firing HE, and I turned out and I actually take an armor-piercing salvo from him. That was trap number 1. Trap number 2 is about to light up at any moment. There they are. Look at the perfect placement of these torpedoes. He hits me with all of them. All of them. It's like, really? Like, he played that perfectly. He shot me with HE, got me hit by the hood, and then, because he knew I would swing out, he had already launched his torpedoes out ahead of me and caught me with all 3 of them. Now, with that blunder out of the way, a lot of you are probably like, Spartan, why would you showcase this match then? If this is how it's going to go, you're not going to have a very good match. But that's where you'd be wrong. Because people who know me, and hopefully you guys do by now, know that I don't give up. I don't care if I lose all my health at the beginning. As long as I'm still alive, I'm going to keep fighting. And so will to rebuild is actually going to be keeping me alive for a little while. I'm burning. I've got the mass out here shooting at me. I'm going to take a shot at the mass. He's not going as fast as I was thinking he was going. We catch him with one anyway. And you can see the hood is still trying to shoot us, but failing. And we got a much better shot the second time. Mass is still trying to burn us down. We get pretty fortunate not to take a second fire from him. But will to rebuild doing its thing, just keeping my zombie ship alive for a little while. Let these battleships take the lead, and I will take a roll at the back, or a roll towards the back of the team. Okay, you don't always have to be the front guy, right? Sometimes you get your butt kicked, you get to the back, let somebody else take some hits. But keep your guns in the game, keep yourself viable. Don't just completely disengage, because as you can see, we are still fully capable of putting a hit as we citadel the hood at range. Now, that being said, these guys are actually going to continue to push around the left side. The Moss actually comes back in to try to help his teammate in a destroyer by coming after our destroyer. So we're going to try to hit him here. He turns in. I think we get one penetration. Yeah, one overpin there. Not a whole lot of damage. The other guys are also shooting the Moss. Trying to do our best to help our guy out. I'm keeping an eye on that California who took a couple shots at me as well. So you got to really keep your head on a swivel when you got low health. But right now we're doing okay. We're going to be able to get a heal back in 40 seconds. And Moss, this time, has nowhere to go. And we give him all the guns. And it's relatively accurate. And we put them right where they need to go. And we get 4 overpins on him, narrowly finishing him off. And North Carolina gets to finish him off. Now, this is where I am going to separate from the team. I've already used them for what they were useful for. I need to create a crossfire at this point. They are clearly going to continue pushing the hood and pushing into the center of Alpha. I am going to fall back and defend Delta and set up a crossfire for the guys in the middle and potentially at Charlie. That's what I'm going with. And so these are the situations you got to pay attention to in especially slow battleships. You've got to plan ahead. You got to know what you're thinking. You know, if you know somebody's coming to your base at some point, you've got to plan for it. And so I've already set a course. I'm getting shots on the California. Not very good shots, mind you, but there's not a whole lot I can do if he's stern tanking. He is going to turn right into these torpedoes. And he's also going to be giving me a much better shot for the next shot. So as soon as we get loaded here, we're going to take the shot on the Cali. Now on the Cali, I generally aim a little bit higher because the Cali has such a thick torpedo belt. It'll actually bounce rounds at really weird angles. So I tend to aim a little higher, trying to get those shells up. But North Carolina gets the shot through the middle and takes him down as well. So being in a tier 6 battleship at top tier is kind of nice, isn't it? Especially when it's a good ship like the North Carolina, which we will be talking about next. And boy, do I have a game for you guys in that. I've got some good games lined up. The Tennessee is actually one of the harder ones to get it's probably, out of everything in this line, this is my least favorite in the line. But that being said, it's not a bad ship. It's just, out of everything in the line, this is my least favorite. And I said that the other day, and people were like, well, Spartan, the other day you just said this was a great ship. I'm like, yeah, but it still can be my least favorite in the line. Everything else is just more fun. But, yeah, Tier 5s in general, there are some very great ships at Tier 5. So they got a lot of hype to live up to in order to meet my expectations of a Tier 5 battleship. You know, it's hard to beat Queen Elizabeth, Warspite, Arizona at Tier 5. Those are just the best freaking battleships at Tier 5, period. I don't care what anybody says. A lot of people will bring up West Virginia, but West Virginia is too squishy. It has great guns, but way too squishy. You know, I'm going to showcase just how nasty Tier 5 battleships can be as we push forward. Now remember, at one point, I was sub 14,000 hit points. That doesn't seem like a whole lot when it's like half the health of a cruiser, but still. We were down to basically nothing. We were on fire. We were using will to rebuild to keep us alive. And then we've managed to get back up to 26,000 hit points. We've used all of our heals, but we're putting ourselves in a position where we are going to be setting up crossfires. Now, this doesn't always mean that you're going to benefit from the crossfire. Sometimes setting up a crossfire benefits your team more than it does you. Why is this? Because sometimes people will battle tank you, and that gives the broadside of their ship to the rest of the team. That's kind of what's going to happen in this one, although we are going to get some juicy shots initially, because they don't know I'm here yet, right? So I'm about to be spotted by the Mutsu that you can see coming towards us, running away from our destroyer. I say affirmative. This guy goes mostly broadside to us. He's still slightly angled. He's still in the turn. Looks like it's going to be a solid hit. And yeah, we get a really good hit. Now that's going to change how that guy plays for the rest of this fight. Now that I've hit him that hard, he wants to, and you can tell that was North Carolina overmatching him as well. So North Carolina putting our hurt down. And between us, he can't bow tank us both. He has to choose. This is called setting up a crossfire. And this is why I say it's not always to benefit you. Sometimes your teammates will take the benefit. Because he turns to bow tank me, he's given the side of his ship, or at least a much better angle of his ship, to the friendly battleship. And so we take some shots at the superstructure, knowing that we can get some damage by aiming high, getting that superstructure damage. It's an American battleship. American and German battleships all have extra hit points allocated to the superstructure, meaning you can get a lot of damage from them. Now, once it gets saturated, that becomes a problem, but until then, we've got pretty solid looks at this guy. Now, he's turning all the way back out. He realizes he's overextended, but it's a little too late. Now, he's obviously turning to try to get all of his guns to me, so I start turning in. We destroy one of his main guns. I start turning in, fully aware that I am giving the side of my ship to a Mutsu, which is not preferable, but I'll take my chances with him more than the Tennessee. Tennessee misses, and we bounce a couple rounds off of our belt, and it's immediately full turn to the right, because this Mutsu is going to take a shot, and he's going to shatter off of our turrets, and then he's going to try to get his torpedo off. He knows he has a torpedo. He's going to try to get it, and wait for it. And pow! You can't do this. Come on. You're the Mutsu, man. That thing is a death strike waiting to happen, and you think you're going to turn and get your freaking torpedo off this close? I don't think so. Don't think so, Sunshine. Go back to the port. And then I hit the horn, and everybody answers, which was pretty awesome. Not going to lie. Not going to lie. Everybody answers, and it's something that, you know, I don't really care for the horns too much. I think a lot of people overuse the horns. But if you're using the horn to, like, say, hey, you're in my way, I'm coming through, or if you use the horn in that sense, like you just had a huge play and you want to, you know, celebrate. In this case, it's a win. It's a guaranteed win at this point. We've got 3 caps. We're almost out of points. Like, this is over. But, you know, it's a fun little thing to celebrate with your team occasionally. And to get everybody to answer like that was fun. And so we take a shot at the New Mexico superstructure here and don't get a whole lot. The dispersion wasn't great. Heat's turned into us a little bit too much, and we weren't able to get a whole lot. But you can see other people are able to shoot him. The destroyer's opening up on him. The destroyer's headed right for him. And so we take another shot at the superstructure, knowing that we're going to get one more shot off before this game ends. Hoping that next time we get a shot, that was a much better dispersion-wise, but didn't give us a whole lot of damage. But we know we're going to get the shot off. It's going to be very close. Are we going to be able to shoot and hit him before this game's over? Come on, baby. Give it to me. Give it to me. Get the guns loaded. It's so close. Come on. Fire the guns. Fire them. Now, obviously, the destroyer has intended to ram at this point, which isn't a bad play. Get that damage. But unfortunately, right before they hit each other, we get 1,000 points. If he hits him just a hair sooner, that game is going to last a little bit longer because he would have lost that points, the battleship survived, and we would have got a nice chunk out of him. But 133,000 damage, Dreadnought high caliber, Not too shabby. And if you like what I'm doing, punch the like button, leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, I will see you in the next video.